Every time you surrender to fear, doubt, or laziness, you bury a piece of your power, and the world needs warriors, not prisoners. What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create. Buddha's words aren't philosophy. They're a weapon. Right now, weak feelings are sabotaging your relationships, your career, your peace. You know it. That voice whispering, "I can't." The anxiety that hijacks your focus. The shame that chains you to past mistakes. This isn't just stress. It's a war for your soul, and most people are losing it. But what if I told you Buddha and modern neuroscience agree? You are not your emotions. You're the observer, the commander. Imagine waking up tomorrow with unshakable clarity. No fear, no excuses, just ruthless focus. How much more could you conquer? In this video, you'll steal 10 ancient secrets to rewire your mind, tested by monks and warriors for 2,500 years. One principle alone can turn pain into fuel. Another exposes fear as a paper tiger. And the final lesson? A bombshell most gurus won't tell you. Killing weakness isn't about force, it's about love. This isn't motivation, this is a blueprint. If you're going to take one thing from this video, let it be this. Weakness dies the moment you stop believing its lies. By the end, you will hear the bonus principle. That changes everything you thought about mental strength was wrong. Number 1. Weakness is a storm you observe, not a flood that drowns you. A storm rages, winds howl, chaos reigns. At ground level, it feels endless. An unstoppable force ready to consume everything in its path. But step back, rise above. From space, the same storm looks small, insignificant, temporary. It has no power. It is just a swirl of passing clouds. And this is how your weakness deceives you. You feel fear, doubt, sadness, like a flood pulling you under. But weakness isn't real in the way you think. It's not drowning you. It's a storm passing through your mind. The problem isn't the storm. The problem is that you believe you are the storm. You are the sky. Everything else is just weather. Buddhism teaches that emotions are impermanent. They rise, they fall, but they are not you. The mistake we make is attaching ourselves to them, letting a single storm define our entire existence. A failure in the past becomes, "I am a failure." A moment of fear turns into, "I am weak." But these are passing clouds, illusions we mistake for the sky itself. Think about the last time you felt completely lost, overwhelmed by self-doubt. In that moment, it felt permanent, like you would never escape. But where is that feeling now? Did it last? Or did it pass like every other emotion before it? Your weakness is not your enemy, it's your teacher. It shows you where you are attached. When rejection stings, it reveals your need for validation. When failure paralyzes you, it exposes your fear of being seen as less than perfect. These emotions come to teach you, not to destroy you. The question is, will you observe them, or will you let them control you? The next time self-doubt hits, do this. Pause. Breathe. Say to yourself, "This is a storm. I am the sky." In that moment, you step back. You see the hurricane from space instead of getting lost in the wind. You become the observer, not the victim. Weakness wants you to react, to panic, to fight, to drown in its illusion. But when you detach, when you watch it instead of becoming it, its power fades. You realize that no feeling has ever been permanent. No emotion has ever defined you. So ask yourself, what storm are you mistaking for your identity? What weakness have you allowed to control your life simply because you forgot that it will pass? The strongest minds aren't those who never feel fear or doubt. They are those who recognize emotions for what they are: temporary, fleeting, powerless. The sky is never broken by the storm, and you, no matter how lost you feel, have never been broken by your emotions. You have always been the sky, so rise above, observe. Let the storm rage if it must, but never forget who you truly are. 2. Discipline is the sword that cuts through illusion. A samurai does not wait until battle to sharpen his blade. He trains daily, refining each strike, each movement, so when the moment of combat arrives, he does not hesitate. His sword cuts cleanly through the illusion of fear, doubt, and hesitation. This is discipline, not punishment, not restriction, but preparation. The mind, like a blade, dulls without practice. And in a world full of distractions, weakness creeps in when the edge is lost. You wake up, you check your phone, you scroll endlessly. The day begins, but your mind is already scattered. You tell yourself you'll start later. You'll focus when you feel ready. But readiness never comes. Procrastination is the rust that dulls your blade, and every moment you surrender to distraction, you become weaker. Discipline is not about forcing yourself through suffering. It is about sharpening your mind so that when the chaos of life strikes, you are prepared. The way to defeat Mara is with the sword of mindfulness. Mara, the great deceiver in Buddhist teachings, thrives on illusion. He whispers in your mind, telling you that you are too tired, too unmotivated, too small to change your life. But what if you had a weapon strong enough to cut through his lies? That weapon is discipline, and it is forged not in grand acts, but in small, consistent rituals. Consider the Zen monks who wake before dawn, sitting in meditation before the world even stirs. Not because they always want to, not because it is easy, but because it is training. The simple act of showing up sharpens their will. Their minds become like the samurai's blade, calm, focused, ready. Imagine applying that same discipline to your own life. A daily practice, no matter how small. Meditation, writing, exercise. A commitment to one thing that strengthens your mind every single day. When the thought arises, "I don't feel like it," replace it with, "I sharpen my blade." That simple shift turns discipline from an obligation into a purpose. You are not suffering. You are training. You are preparing yourself for the battles ahead, so that when life tests you, when challenges appear, you are not weak. You are ready. Ask yourself, what one task will you do daily to forge discipline? What small ritual will you commit to? Not for motivation, not for a fleeting burst of energy, but to train your mind to be unshakable. Discipline is not harsh. It is compassion for your future self. It is the hand that lifts you when your weaker self wants to give up. The truth is, you will not always feel strong, but strength is not about how you feel. It is about what you do despite your feelings. The dull blade hesitates. The sharpened blade cuts through all illusion. Which one will you carry? 3. Fear is a paper tiger. Burn it with inquiry. A child sees a monster lurking in the corner of a dark room. It has sharp claws, glowing eyes, an unbearable presence that freezes them in fear. But then the light flicks on, and the terrifying creature? Just a pile of clothes. The fear was real. The monster was not. This is how fear deceives you. It appears overwhelming, unstoppable, a force that rules your choices. But have you ever stopped to ask, what exactly am I afraid of? And what happens if I face it? The only thing to fear is fear itself. Fear is a paper tiger, fierce in appearance, but empty inside. It roars, but it has no teeth. It chases you, but only because you keep running. What happens when you stop? What happens when you turn and ask, what's the worst that can happen? Can I survive it? The mind resists this question because it exposes fear for what it truly is, an illusion. Fear thrives in vagueness. It whispers, you'll fail, but never defines what failure even means. It warns, people will judge you, but never explains why their opinions should hold power over your life. The moment you bring fear into the light, it loses its grip. Buddhism teaches that fear is a trick of Mara, the great deceiver, the force that keeps you bound to suffering. But here's the secret. Mara only wins if you believe him. He tells you the tiger is real. You believe, so you flee. He tells you your fears are too big to face. You believe, so you remain small. But the moment you question him, the illusion cracks. Write your fear down. Physically put it on paper. Be specific. Not just, I'm afraid of failure, but I'm afraid that if I fail, I'll be seen as worthless. Now ask, is that true? Will failure erase your worth? Or is that just a belief you've never challenged? Hold that paper in your hands and imagine burning it, watching the false belief turn to ashes, because that's all it ever was, an illusion made of smoke, ruling you only because you never tested its reality. What paper tiger has been ruling your choices? Is it the fear of starting something new? The fear of leaving a toxic situation? The fear of not being enough? Now ask yourself, if I face this fear head on, what's the absolute worst that could happen? And if it did, could I survive it? More often than not, the answer is yes. Because no matter how big the monster in your mind seems, the reality is always smaller. Fear is not the enemy, it is a doorway. It shows you where you are still clinging, where your growth is waiting. But you have to walk through it. And the moment you do, you realize the truth. There was never anything to be afraid of. Only shadows, only paper. And fire burns paper every time. 4. Pain is a map, not a prison. Pain is a prison. At least that's what the mind wants you to believe. When suffering arrives, the instinct is to run, to resist, to shut down. You tell yourself, this shouldn't be happening. I don't want to feel this. But what if pain wasn't meant to trap you? What if instead of locking you inside suffering, it was pointing the way out? No mud, no lotus. A lotus, pure and unshaken, rises from the filthiest waters. It doesn't bloom in perfect conditions. It grows because of the mud, not in spite of it. And your pain, it serves the same purpose. It's not here to destroy you. It's here to guide you. Think of it like a compass. When the needle swings north, it doesn't hurt you. It simply shows the way. But most people don't see it like that. Instead of following the direction pain points toward, they cover their eyes, ignore the signs, and stay stuck. A broken heart points to attachment. A loss points to resistance. A failure points to ego. Pain reveals what you cling to, what you fear, and where you still have work to do. Yet, instead of using it, most people numb themselves. They distract, they avoid, they pretend they don't feel anything. But pain doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It stays, lingering in the background, waiting for the moment you're finally ready to listen. Next time pain comes, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this pain trying to show me? Maybe your suffering is telling you to let go of something you've been holding onto too tightly. Maybe it's forcing you to confront a weakness you've been running from. Or maybe it's showing you the exact path you need to take to grow. The pain you avoid is the very door to your strength. What map have you ignored because the path looked hard? Maybe it's a conversation you're afraid to have, a risk you're too scared to take, a truth you've buried because facing it feels unbearable. But avoiding the path doesn't erase the journey. The lesson will keep returning until you finally walk through it. Buddhism teaches that attachment is the root of suffering, but not in a way that demands indifference. It's not about shutting down your emotions. It's about understanding them. It's about realizing that pain isn't a punishment, it's a teacher. And when you stop fighting it, when you lean in and listen, something incredible happens. The suffering doesn't own you anymore. The prison doors open, and the same pain that once felt unbearable becomes the key to your own freedom. You are not trapped. You never were. The path has always been there, waiting for you to take the first step. So the only question left is, will you finally follow the map? 5. Focus is a muscle. Train it like a monk. The mind is like a wild horse, untamed, restless, constantly pulling in different directions. One moment, you're working. The next, you're scrolling. A thought arises. A notification pings. Suddenly, an hour is gone, and you wonder why you never feel in control. This is the cost of distraction. It weakens you, steals your energy, and scatters your power. But here's the truth. Focus is not something you have. It's something you train. The mind is restless, Krishna, but through practice, it can be steadied. Imagine a laser. Scattered light is harmless. It glows, but it does nothing. But focus that same light into a single point, and it cuts through steel. Your mind is the same. Scattered, it wastes energy. Focused, it becomes unstoppable. And no one understands this better than Buddhist monks. They don't have superhuman abilities. They aren't born with unwavering discipline. They simply train their focus every single day. A Zen monk wakes up and sweeps the floor. Nothing extraordinary, just sweeping. But here's the difference. He doesn't think about emails. He doesn't check his phone. He doesn't let his mind wander to the past or the future. He sweeps. That's it. Complete presence, complete focus. Because monks understand that mastery is not found in doing more. It's found in doing one thing fully. This is single-pointed concentration, and it's a superpower in a world addicted to distractions. Distraction is a form of self-abandonment. Every time you lose focus, you lose a piece of yourself. You trade your presence for chaos. Your mind jumps between tasks, never fully engaged, never fully alive. And the result? A life spent half living, half working, half listening, half existing. But what if, instead of letting distractions control you, you took control of your focus? Start small. 5 minutes a day, one task, one breath. When you work, just work. When you eat, just eat. When you listen, listen completely. At first, your mind will resist. It will crave stimulation, urge you to switch, to check, to escape. But if you stay, if you practice, something shifts. Your focus strengthens. Your energy stops leaking. Your mind, once scattered, sharpens like a blade. Where is your laser most needed today? What part of your life suffers because your attention is divided? Maybe it's your work. Maybe it's your relationships. Maybe it's your own mind craving stillness, but never finding it. Buddhist monks spend years mastering focus, not because they want control over the mind, but because they know this truth. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. If your mind is constantly pulled in every direction, your life will feel the same, scattered, incomplete, unfulfilled. But if your mind is steady, your life becomes steady. If your mind is sharp, your path becomes clear. Multitasking is not efficiency. It's self-sabotage. The modern world has tricked you into thinking that doing more means achieving more. But real progress doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing one thing with complete presence. That's the secret of focus. That's how monks train their minds. Focus is a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. The question is, will you keep scattering your power, or will you sharpen your mind and cut through the noise? 6. Consistency is the dharma of the ant. The strongest force in the world isn't a storm, an earthquake, or even fire. It's something much smaller, an ant carrying a grain of sand, a drop of water shaping a canyon, a tiny action repeated over and over until it changes everything. This is the power of consistency. But most people ignore it. They chase big transformations, instant breakthroughs, and overnight success. When they don't see results immediately, they quit, and that's why they fail. Rivers are formed drop by drop. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the smallest, most consistent actions hold the greatest power. Enlightenment isn't achieved in a single moment. It's built through small daily disciplines. A monk doesn't meditate once and find peace forever. He sits, breathes, and repeats, day after day, month after month, year after year. Not because he feels like it, but because he understands a universal truth. The mind is like a garden. Neglect it, and weeds take over. Tend to it daily and it flourishes. Look at the ant. It doesn't stop when the task is too big. It doesn't wait for motivation. It just moves, one grain of sand at a time, until a mountain is built. What if you approached life the same way? What if, instead of waiting for motivation, you relied on ritual? Most people think they need massive effort to create change. But the truth? The tiniest actions, done consistently, are more powerful than bursts of intensity. A single drop of water is weak, but 1,000 drops carve through stone. The same is true for you. It's not about doing something big once. It's about doing something small every day. If you improve by just 1% every day, the results will compound beyond your imagination. One extra push-up, one extra page read, 1 minute of meditation. These tiny actions may seem insignificant, but over time, they transform you. The problem: most people quit because they don't see instant results. They meditate for a week, but their mind still races. They exercise for a month, but the mirror shows no change. They forget that true progress is invisible until one day it isn't. What drop will you add to your river today? What small action can you commit to, no matter how tiny, that will shape your future? Stop thinking in terms of motivation. It's unreliable. It fades. But ritual is unstoppable. A monk doesn't ask if he feels like meditating. He just does it. A river doesn't ask if it should keep flowing. It just does. And eventually, it carves through mountains. Your weakness doesn't come from a lack of strength. It comes from inconsistency. You are not failing because you're incapable. You're failing because you stop, because you expect results too soon, because you don't trust the process. But here's the truth. The most powerful people aren't the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who show up every single day, no matter what. Will you be the drop that vanishes, or the one that shapes your destiny? 7. Non-attachment is the art of open hands. You are hanging from a trapeze, gripping the bar with everything you have. Below you, the void stretches endlessly. Ahead, another bar swings toward you. If you reach for it while holding onto the first, you will fall. There is only one way forward. You must let go. Life is the same. You want peace, but you cling to control. You want success, but you fear failure. You want love, but you refuse to release the past. And this attachment, this desperate need to hold on, is the very thing that keeps you stuck. Let go or be dragged. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment. not from loss, not from failure, not from pain. Those are all inevitable. The real suffering happens when we resist, when we refuse to accept what is, when we white-knuckle a reality that is already slipping through our fingers. A trapeze artist who hesitates, who clings to what was, will fall. But the one who trusts, who lets go with full conviction, will fly. Non-attachment is not apathy. It is not passivity. It is total engagement without desperation. It means giving your all, pouring your heart into your work, your dreams, your relationships, and then, when the time comes, releasing the outcome. You take action, but you don't grip the results with fear. Think about the things that bring you the most anxiety, the job promotion you crave, the approval you chase, the relationship you're afraid to lose. What would happen if, instead of gripping them with fear, you held them lightly? If you showed up fully, gave your best, and then whispered, "I release this to the universe." Non-attachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering over what you can't control. The truth? Control is an illusion. You can do everything right and still lose. You can hold on tightly and still watch things slip away. And if your happiness depends on an outcome, you will always be its prisoner. What are you white-knuckling that's poisoning your peace? What bar are you refusing to let go of? Imagine how much lighter you'd feel if you could just trust, if you could just surrender, if you could just step into the unknown without fear, knowing that even if you fall, you will rise again. Letting go is not weakness, it is strength. The strongest warrior is not the one who clings, but the one who moves forward without fear. The freest person is not the one who controls everything, but the one who accepts everything. When you act without attachment, you unlock true power. You become fearless, because nothing can break you when you are not holding on. Will you keep gripping what's gone, or will you let go and fly? 8. Anger is a fire that burns the holder. You grip a burning coal in your hand, seething with anger, convinced that when the time is right, you'll throw it at the one who wronged you. But as you wait, the fire doesn't harm them. It burns you. Your skin blisters, your palm aches. But still, you refuse to let go. This is anger. This is resentment. A fire you feed, believing it punishes others, when in reality, it destroys only you. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Buddhism teaches that anger is not power, it's suffering. You believe your rage gives you strength, but in truth, it makes you weak. It clouds your mind, poisons your heart, and keeps you shackled to the past. You replay the betrayal, the insult, the injustice, thinking that by holding on to the pain, you can somehow make it right. But has it ever worked? Has anger ever set you free? Imagine you are locked in a prison cell. The bars are not made of steel, but of resentment, of grudges, of old wounds that you refuse to release. You tell yourself that holding on protects you, that if you forgive, you let them win. But the truth? The only prisoner is you. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's your jailbreak. Metta, the Buddhist practice of loving kindness, teaches us that to be free, we must replace anger with compassion. Not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. This doesn't mean excusing their actions. It doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let their harm define you any longer. The fire dies when you stop feeding it. Who is your coal? What name? What memory? What wound still burns in your palm? Write it down. A letter, a single sentence. Release it from your mind. You don't have to send it. You don't have to tell them, but you do have to let go. Because as long as you carry it, the only one who suffers is you. Anger demands justice, but it never delivers it. It keeps you trapped in the past, reliving the pain over and over, as if doing so will change what's already happened. But nothing will ever undo the past. The only power you have is over this moment, right now, where you get to decide, will you continue to hold the coal, or will you drop it and finally walk free? A warrior's strength isn't in their ability to hold on to pain, but in their ability to rise above it. Forgiveness isn't surrender. It's the highest form of power. The day you release your anger is the day you reclaim your freedom. So, what will it be? Will you let the fire consume you, or will you put it out and step into your peace? 9. Ego is a mirage in the desert. You wander through a vast desert, thirsty, desperate, chasing a shimmering oasis in the distance. You run toward it, convinced that once you reach it, you'll finally be fulfilled. But as you approach, the illusion vanishes. The oasis was never real. This is your ego. It promises you power, validation, superiority. But it's nothing more than a mirage, keeping you lost in the sands of suffering. The ego tells you that you are separate, special, above or below others. It whispers that your identity is your achievements, your reputation, your status. But who were you before the world told you who to be? Before the labels, before the comparisons, before the endless chase? Like a wave believing it is separate from the ocean, you mistake yourself for something small, when in reality, you are part of something infinite. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Buddhism teaches that the self is an illusion, that clinging to identity, whether through pride or insecurity, creates suffering. You defend your image, protect your opinions, compete for validation, but at what cost? Have you ever noticed how much pain comes from taking things personally? From feeling insulted, unappreciated, unseen? That suffering isn't from reality. It's from the story your ego is telling you. Imagine a monk sweeping a temple courtyard. He does it not for praise, not for recognition, but because the act itself is enough. When you serve without seeking, when you give without expecting, you dissolve the illusion of separateness. This is the true path to strength, not building yourself up, but realizing there is no self to build. The river does not cling to its water, the tree does not hold on to its leaves, yet both continue to exist, whole and complete. When was the last time your ego tricked you into suffering? The last time you were offended, jealous, anxious about how others perceived you? What if, instead of fighting to protect your image, you let it go? Instead of seeking significance, you chose service. Start small. Once a week, do something anonymously for someone else. A kind note, a small favor, an act of generosity with no expectation in return. Notice what happens. Notice how freedom feels. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. It is not weakness, but liberation from the endless need to prove, defend, or compare. The more you loosen your grip on identity, the lighter you become. Like a wave merging back into the ocean, you realize you were never separate. You were never alone. And in that realization, the mirage fades, leaving only truth, vast and endless, like the sea. 10. Death is the ultimate teacher of fearlessness. You wake up one morning, going through your usual routine, checking your phone, rushing through breakfast, thinking about your endless to-do list. But what if today was your last? What if, by sunset, everything ended? Would you still waste time scrolling? Would you still hold on to grudges? Would you still postpone your dreams for someday? Most people live as if they have infinite time, as if death is something distant, something that happens to other people. But death is not far. It walks beside you, unnoticed, until one day it takes your hand. Buddhist monks meditate on death daily, not to be morbid, but to live with clarity. They create intricate sand mandalas, masterpieces of color and symmetry, only to sweep them away once they're finished. A reminder that life, no matter how beautiful, is temporary. Yet, instead of making them despair, this truth sets them free. Because when you accept impermanence, you stop wasting time on meaningless things. You stop fearing failure because you realize failure itself will be forgotten. You stop hesitating, waiting for the perfect moment because perfection is an illusion. Every morning we are born again. What we do today matters most. Imagine your eulogy being read right now. What would it say? Would it be filled with regrets, dreams unpursued, words left unsaid, love withheld out of fear? Or would it tell the story of someone who truly lived, someone who embraced every moment with urgency and gratitude? Death is not your enemy, it is your greatest teacher. It strips away all illusions, leaving only the truth. That time is precious, and that fear is a thief robbing you of life. If you knew you had 1 year left, what would you do differently? Would you let go of petty arguments? Would you take that risk you've been avoiding? Would you finally speak your truth? The irony is, you do have limited time, but most people realize this too late. The good news? You still have today, right now. And that is enough. Take a moment and write your own eulogy. Not as a passive exercise, but as a blueprint. What kind of person do you want to be remembered as? What impact do you want to leave? Then start living in alignment with that vision. Small choices, made daily, create the legacy you leave behind. The reality of death doesn't diminish life. It makes it more vivid, more urgent, more meaningful. Fear of death is really the fear of an unlived life. But you are alive right now. Breathe that in. Feel the weight of this moment. You still have time to love deeply, to chase your dreams, to free yourself from fear. When death comes, let it find you fully awake, fully present, and utterly fearless. Bonus principle: killing. Weakness is an act of love, not war. You have spent years waging war against yourself. Every doubt, every failure, every moment of hesitation, you've attacked with harsh words, relentless judgment, and impossible expectations. You call yourself weak when you hesitate, useless when you fail, and unworthy when you struggle. But has this war ever made you stronger? Or has it only left you exhausted, trapped in a battle you can never win? The truth is, strength is not built by crushing your weak feelings. It is built by understanding them. Imagine a mother lion watching her cub struggle to hunt for the first time. Does she mock its weakness? Does she shame it for falling? No. She teaches, she nurtures, she gives it time to grow. And yet, when you face struggles in your own life, you do not respond with patience or guidance. You respond with cruelty. You expect perfection from a mind still learning, from a heart still healing. But weakness is not something to hate. It is something to transform. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love. You are not weak. You are untrained. You are not broken. You are in progress. What you call weakness is often just a part of yourself waiting to be strengthened. The fear that paralyzes you is not your enemy. It is a part of you that longs for reassurance. The hesitation you despise is simply uncertainty, begging for guidance. And the self-doubt that keeps you stuck? It is not a curse. It is an invitation to build trust in yourself. You do not kill weakness by beating yourself down. You kill weakness by lifting yourself up. If you train a muscle by breaking it down, but never let it recover, it never grows. Strength comes from the balance of effort and rest. discipline, and self-compassion. You would never tell a child, "You're weak, so you'll never walk." So why do you say this to yourself? Why do you believe that struggling today means you'll struggle forever? Every strong person you admire was once where you are now. They did not get there by self-hatred. They got there by persistence, by patience, and by understanding that growth takes time. The next time you catch yourself calling yourself weak, stop. Instead, ask, what part of me needs my patience right now? What needs my guidance, not my judgment? Because the moment you turn self-judgment into self-compassion, you stop being your own worst enemy and become your own greatest ally. Weakness isn't something to kill. It is something to nurture, to shape, to guide into strength. So, what part of yourself have you been fighting that actually needs your love? What if, instead of trying to destroy your fears, you sat with them and asked what they needed? What if, instead of calling yourself weak, you saw yourself as a student, learning, growing, evolving? That shift alone is enough to change everything. Because true strength is not the absence of weakness. It is the willingness to meet your struggles with love, and from that love, rise. Quick summary of 10 principles. Observe emotions, don't own them. Weak feelings are temporary storms. Detach, witness them, and reclaim power. Discipline as compassion. Daily rituals, like meditation, train the mind to cut through distraction. Consistency is kindness to your future self. Fear is a liar. Question fear's validity. Its power dissolves under scrutiny. What you avoid is often the door to growth. Pain as a guide. Suffering points to attachments. Use it to identify what you're clinging to, then let go. Laser focus. Distraction is the mind's default. Train focus like a muscle through single-task practice. Small actions, big results. Progress isn't about motivation. Rituals compound into unstoppable momentum. Release outcomes, act fiercely, but surrender results. Clinging to control breeds suffering. Forgive to free yourself. Anger harms you, not others. Letting go is a jailbreak from resentment. Ego is an illusion. Serve others to dissolve the separate self myth. Humility is power. Death teaches fearlessness. Mortality is a reminder to live urgently. Regret dies when you act now. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. Buddha. Zen teaches that mental strength isn't about battling weakness, but seeing through its illusions. Your thoughts are not commands, they're passing clouds. When you stop fighting feelings, you become the sky. What will you see when the storm clears? Modern life sells quick fixes, but Buddha warned, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Your phone, job, or relationships won't save you. True power is sitting silently with your chaos until it bows to your presence. When will you stop outsourcing your peace? Zen masters say, chop wood, carry water. Strength is found in the mundane. Discipline isn't glamorous, but it's the scalpel that cuts delusion. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you carve a new destiny. What masterpiece are you sculpting with your daily choices? The bonus lesson? Killing weakness is an act of love. Buddha said, you yourself deserve your love. Compassion for your flaws isn't weakness. It's the fire that forges unbreakable resolve. What would change if you stopped fighting yourself and started freeing yourself? The only real failure is never beginning. Zen proverb. You've survived every bad day so far. Now rise. Smash the like button if this sparked your warrior spirit. Share it with someone drowning in their storms. Subscribe to Deep Wisdom. Your next step toward peace is one click away. The world needs your light. Will you hide it or let it blaze?